So welcome, everyone. This week I wanted to introduce a dear friend of mine, Anne Hellesto, who is not only a marvelous kayaker and hiker friend, but an extremely gifted integrative medicine healer and licensed nurse practitioner. And Leanne, you're the one I go to when I'm needing some help. So I'm thrilled to have Leanne here to present a talk about lifestyle changes and health changes we can make with respect to cancer, breast cancer. For the nurse practitioner, you gave this talk to the Nurse Practitioner Organization, and we're going to make any changes for the average person here. And Leanne has a practice in Bend called Discover Health. She's been there for 7 years, but in the field for 30. And I'm just so thrilled that you're here, Leanne. Thank you for being here. And you know, you have an interesting story to tell about how you got to where you are. We're on similar pages, if not the same page, with Mind, Body, Spirit as the whole package for healing. And I just thought it was remarkable, your journey, how you got to where you are.
Well, thank you, Judy. And as Judy said, my name's Anne Hellesto. I'm an integrative medicine nurse practitioner and energy medicine specialist. I've been in nursing for 32 years, and yeah, I did have to get out the calculator to figure that out. And I've been an NP since 2005. The road I've taken is definitely the road less traveled, but it's been so rewarding. When my clients in the internal medicine clinic, hardcore Western medicine, in Anchorage, Alaska, were not getting better, I stepped out of conventional medicine and went to work in an integrative medicine clinic to learn more. Working with other nurse practitioners and naturopaths, I saw people getting better and staying well. And it was so exciting and eye-opening. So I went on to the University of Arizona's Integrative Medicine Fellowship and was introduced to energy medicine. I'd never seen that specialty used openly in practice before, though by then I was seeing an energy medicine practitioner. This launched a new exploration for me and has become my passion and main practice focus. The mind, body, and spirit in conjunction holds the key to much of our health experience. And as a little side note right here, I want to mention something about research. Our practice is based on evidence-based research. But I'd like you to consider a piece of information by the medical information specialist, Dr. Alvin Poussant, during an address to Harvard Medical School in 2017. Dr. Poussant spoke of the medical half-life being 18 to 24 months, meaning the amount of information we have within 18 to 24 months, half of that is obsolete. And within that next 4 years, he anticipated it to go down to 73 days. So that's now 2021, when half of the medical knowledge he anticipates will be obsolete within 73 days. Holy moly.
Yeah.
When medical protocols take greater than 10 years to become standard and get to clients, we need to stay open to improvements in that system. And actually, I checked with a friend, and she said that's closer to about 16 years. So, wow, holy, yeah. Just golly.
Yeah.
So the talk I did to the State Nurse Practitioner Convention was on nurses and breast cancer. And I just feel like there's so much that kind of like not only is applicable to the nurses, but also applicable to everybody else. So that's what Judy and I decided to bring today. So I'm just going to go through the talk, and we're open for questions. If you've got something to put into the chat, please do. But right now, I'm just going to share with you what I brought to the State Nurse Practitioners.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Share my screen. So nurses and breast cancer, why us and what can we do? So in this instance, the goal here is for us to stimulate thought and conversations. That's all this is designed to do today. It's not designed to give you every little bit of information that you need, but let's think about it and get it out in conversation. We all know what cancer looks like. We live with it. We live with people who have been exposed, and You've been exposed to it through those people that you live with. And it's a pretty big deal. I'm not going to go deeply into any one area today, but I would just want to keep those thoughts flowing. Okay. And I encourage you to find what is applicable to you and consider further study and further conversations and reach out. So we know what the women look like with cancer. We've seen them. This is a familiar face to the public these days. We see sporting events now with their pink shoes, hats, and uniforms. How many of you have run or walked in one of these events? And for most of you, that participation has been very personal. You or somebody close to you has suffered at the hands of breast cancer. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. Now, what I'd really like for you to do here for a moment is just close your eyes, look at that second picture, the one in blue, and just kind of imagine what you would feel like with that. And at the risk of triggering anybody, just feel what that is for a moment. And you may feel fear or a host of other emotions. Now take a deep breath and exhale through the bottom of your feet. Yep, you heard me right. Through the bottom of your feet. You may need to do that a time or two because we're just going to take that sensation and move it out of your body. And that breathing deeply and exhaling like that is one of the fastest ways I found to release bound up energy. Awesome. So nursing is different, and we know nurses, they're special, and they really are very special. They're working right now on the front lines. They're exposed to all kinds of things. There was some immense camaraderie in nursing school as you were going through it because you had to work through a whole bunch of stuff. How do you do this and what do you do? So, and even now the nurses, they don't have school necessarily, but they're working together in clinics and hospitals and home care and now by video. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go back and look at those 8 women that we just saw with one of those 8 women that's going to get breast cancer. There's another piece to that. Nurses have a 50% increased risk of developing breast cancer. Doctors at a 2.5% increased risk. So that's shocking. And we're the ones that teach prevention. What the heck?
Yeah, that is shocking.
We're missing something. So I asked a fellow nurse practitioner, I said, so what is this that we went from 1 in 8 to now 2 in 8? Why aren't we shouting this from the mountaintops? We don't complain, is her answer. She's like, yeah, and it's time this stopped. This is a huge at-risk population and it needs to be addressed because you just don't hear about it. But if you go and put it in Google, it will show you, I think it was 58% the last time I looked on Medscape that popped up immediately.
Wow.
So this is what this looks like when you can see on the screen those 2 people popping right up. So we're going to look a little bit more at this later, but let's keep going. So what's the difference between nurses and doctors? Why is there such a huge disparity? Is there a difference in exposure time of whatever might be the concern? Is there an empowerment issue? Is there a difference in training? Are they taught to actually empathize with their people and feel things? We're going to explore that again more later too, because there's another piece to this when we get down at the bottom. So we definitely need more research. We just honestly don't have all of the answers yet. But we've got some different ideas. So I just threw this in for fun because I could.
I do that too.
Just threw it in for fun because I could.
Hi, buddies.
Couldn't resist. So right now, I want you to meet somebody special. I'd like you to meet Rita. Now, Rita, I've got some really good news. Rita does not have breast cancer. However, the bad news is she was diagnosed in September of 2019 with stage 4 rectal cancer. Bad juju. And she's at this time 86 years old. She's the reason I'm doing this talk today. See, Rita also has another name, and that name is Mom. Mom had a remarkable story, and she emphatically told me I had to tell her story. Her story brings to light all the information I'm speaking on today. It was while researching treatment for her, I became aware of nurses having such an increased breast cancer risk. And we'll We'll hear more of Rita's story later. But in the meantime, there were 4,096,607 registered nurses and 920,655 licensed practical nurses in the United States as of October 2019. Wow, that's from the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. Of these 5 million nurses, how many will develop breast cancer in their lifetime? Oh. Holy moly, that's appalling again. And I don't know if your chest gets as heavy as mine does when I read this number, but it's a big deal.
Oh my gosh.
So where are nurses vulnerable? What is this? So with only an hour today, we're not going to get through all of this. So we're just going to go for a few of the items, but we look at diet, and we're going to look at some of the cutting edge research with just a brief glance at it. We're looking at diet. Is it stress? Is it shift work? Is it sleep or lack thereof? Environmental factors, socioeconomic factors such as being a single parent, and more. So let's look at diet for a moment. Okay, that's the big deal these days. Everybody's got to worry about diet. And what are some different ways to look at diet? By the way, did you know that the Greek meaning of the word diet means a way of life? It doesn't have anything to do with, what food you put in your mouth. It's a way of life. So there's lots of diets out there right now. And one of the more recent ones to be getting a lot of research is intermittent fasting. And this research is indicating at least a 13-hour fast is the pivotal point where this becomes effective. So just kind of put that into the thought process.
I love that. I want to hear more about that.
Another way timing is imperative is that there is some research out there that shows eating after 9:30 at night in 41,000 observational study participants in Europe showed that those taking in any calories after 9:30 p.m. experienced nearly a 1.5 increased risk of breast cancer compared to those getting all their food in by 9:30 at night.
I'll be darned.
How simple is that?
Wow.
There's also research into the biome, meaning the gut bacteria, that which lives in our body normally, with discussion of an infection in the GI system, meaning an overgrowth of one particular type of bacteria. It has to do with several medical conditions, including cancer, and that's Schwabe and Fransconi. So all of these resources I do have available by anyone who would like that, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. With breast cancer specifically, there's a subpopulation of these gut bacteria referred to as an estroblome, and that's capable of metabolizing, in other words, creating estrogens. And that may affect the risk of developing estrogen receptive positive breast cancer, especially in postmenopausal women. And in evolutionary medicine, a whole new way of looking at everything is looking at the benefits from who in your body benefits from an increased blood glucose in the host. One answer may be Staph aureus. Anybody ever heard that term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one's been around a lot, and it can cause a lot of the skin infections, but who knew that it might be a beneficiary of high blood sugar? Now, there's some reported cases of new onset obesity after a fecal transplant, implying transference within that system, meaning those that get a fecal transplant for a medical condition like C. diff that you can't get better from, they are ending up with what's coming from the host. So that's where that's looking at. So anyway,
Wow.
Timing an infection on diet. What the heck? Who knew? So now let's go to exercise. Again, the big bugaboo. And again, we're going to look at timing, which is really interesting. Timing is, we're looking at some things like the risk of being diagnosed with the most common breast cancer subtype, hormone receptive positive breast cancer, which you may hear about, is reduced by regular moderate exercise. However, intense physical exercise appears necessary to reduce the risk of the most dangerous breast cancer subtype, the triple negative breast cancer.
Could you say that again? Because
Okay.
that's important.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing that one type of exercise is good for one type of breast cancer,
Right.
and another one is required for the most dangerous. So
Oh,
I'm going to repeat that whole 2 sentences here. The risk of being diagnosed with the most common breast cancer subtype, hormone receptor positive breast cancer, is reduced by regular moderate exercise. However, intense physical activity appears necessary to reduce the risk of the most dangerous breast cancer subtype, triple negative breast cancer.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the BRCA1 mutation carriers. Those are people who have a genetic predisposition. In that group, weight loss of at least 10 pounds in young adulthood decreases the risk of breast cancer by 65%.
I did not know that.
Young adult, those people where you don't even think about breast cancer yet, but if your family carries this, a decreased risk of 65%.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
Okay. And then overweight during childhood and adolescence, get this one's going to blow you, is associated with a decrease in overall risk of breast cancer.
Huh?
I know, seems absolutely counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Huh.
In contrast, weight gain after age 20, termed adult weight gain, is associated with the increased risk of only postmenopausal breast cancer. In fact, higher BMIs and adult weight gain appear to be protective against premenopausal breast cancer. Huh.
Is that, do you have any thoughts on that? The amount of body fat versus hormone production and pregnancy, wanted to get pregnant and all that. You have the extra hormone power there.
Let me give you one more sentence here.
Okay.
What we get is a very confusing message.
Right.
Weight gain or loss at different ages and different times in the menopausal cycle changes everything for different variables genetically. So there's going to be a lot more to come on this, and we're going to learn a lot more. But in the meantime, the bottom line is healthy is better. So just staying healthy, staying active is probably where I'm going to recommend for everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
Just know that there's a lot more to it, and knowing what, genetic type, et cetera, it would be really helpful for you. So now there's also a little bit of interesting information here about insulin resistance. So I was working at a local clinic, a 35-year clinic. It had been there a long time. And I got some labs in one day, and I was not so happy with the labs for the patient. I was like, wow, we need to really sit down and talk. And her fasting blood sugar was 114. And then her family doc looked at me and says, what are you talking about? It's normal. I said, no, it's not. Because you can actually, on the printout, it said it was normal. But the reality is you can change that depending on which lab what you want your lab to say. So the clinic actually has that as an option to be able to choose what their answers should be. In my world, fasting blood sugar above 100 is the start of insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is inflammation. So hyperinsulinemia, which means you have high insulin in your system, is a growth factor and a mitogen, meaning it encourages cell expansion and division, such as cancer. So that's why it's so important to actually do a lot of this and stay healthier. So let's look at sleep for just a split second. The International Agency for Research on Cancer in 2007 declared shift work as a probable carcinogen.
I'm not surprised, actually.
I'm not either. But
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, wow. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is this about the environment? We hear about endocrine disruptors occasionally, but a lot of times that just kind of gets shoved over to the side. Exposure to these chemicals during times of susceptibility, such as in utero, early childhood, puberty, and lactation can have profound and compounding effects.
Wow.
So we went through a lot of discussion years ago about BPA.
Which is what would you say?
But
Okay.
BPA is the one that was really a large discussion because it was in plastic like bottles and stuff. And it was in breastfeeding, bottles for the breast milk, et cetera. So we were feeding it to our kids. It was in all of the plastic bottles. BPA, for example, is similar in chemical structure to estradiol and DES, a different kind of estrogen. And for years, BPA was used to make IV tubing and IV bags, among many other items in hospitals.
Oh, no.
Constant exposure to those things that they're similar to estrogens and they cause disruption in that pathway. BCBs, formerly used in transformers and capacitors, are banned in the US due to endocrine pathway disruption. BAH, I bring up for a particular reason, is they are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Big darn words. In PAH. Incomplete combustion of fossil fuels, including volcanic eruptions and forest fires.
Oh, wow.
And they are an endocrine disruptor.
Wow.
And anybody know any forest fires and smoke around lately?
Well, you live in Sun River part-time, and we all went through it last summer and the year before. So,
well,
wow.
Our smoke reached Europe.
Yeah, I heard that. Jeez.
So there are 102 known chemicals causing mammary cancer in laboratory animals. And at least 32 of those have been measured in the US populations. And that was in 2014, and I am positive that has changed since then. Anybody ever felt like this?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
So let's just relax. Just take a deep breath and exhale out. Because I just threw a lot of terms at you, a lot of numbers, etc. So let's do something different. So everybody, I am going to give you a little demo.
My name is Anne Hellesto. I'm an integrative medicine nurse practitioner and energy medicine practitioner, and I'm here today to show you a simple technique called Super Brain Yoga. This is a very, very quick and easy way of resetting yourself. So take your left hand, grabbing your right earlobe, thumbnail facing forward, your right hand in your left earlobe with your thumbnail facing forward, relaxing your arms into your chest. Next step is to exhale down, keeping your back straight and in alignment, knees bent. Inhale up. Exhaling down, full complete breaths, taking your time. Inhale up. Closing your eyes, going inside to see how it feels in your body where you may have tension and stress. Inhaling back up. Again, fourth exhale. And inhaling back up. And then if you release your arms, just kind of check in and see where you may have any, releases within your body. So those days when your brain is not functioning well, it's been subtly off or majorly off, you've had that pain in your right shoulder that just doesn't want to release. What you're doing with this technique is as you cross the center line of your body, you're integrating your left brain and your right brain, recruiting twice as many brain cells, like we couldn't all use them. And as we exhale down, we're releasing that tension into the earth and bringing earth energy up. And these are actually acupressure sites that can be very effective. So I hope you find this helpful and have a great day. Namaste.
Meet Jill. So Jill is not her real name, by the way, but her story is true. Jill drives a car for a living, many hundreds of thousands of miles per year. So diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, etc., are difficult for her. Jill was diagnosed with stage 0 ductal carcinoma. Didn't even know that existed before I started going through treatment with her almost 2 years ago. And that was just in one breast. I was her medical support person for all of her treatment, including a radical mastectomy and reconstruction. The hard part is I knew it was coming before Jill's diagnosis. You see, Jill carried a lot of trauma, heartaches, and is someone who takes care of everyone and for everyone at her expense. So Dr. Kelly Turner had an early experience with negative outcomes in cancer, both in friends and family. She started to dive into cancer research in graduate school and ultimately dictating her life to discovering what people do to overcome cancer at all odds. Interviewing patients and gathering case studies, she compiled data from over 1,000 patients. Interestingly, she found 2 groups ignored in all the case studies. It was interesting.
Wow.
She found that the patients themselves who had survived and were kind of not paid any attention to, and the alternative healers or complementary healers who helped them survive. So Kelly compiled a list of 75 common items that these people had used to be able to cure their late stage or, basically cancer where everybody else had written them off. They said, we haven't got anything else to offer them. And these people 25 years later were alive. 75 common items, but 9 were common to almost everyone. And we're going to take a quick glance at that. So the first one, having strong reasons for living. I don't know, do you all know somebody who's just got like one toe on the planet? They could check out any day and they'd be happy campers.
Mm-hmm.
What is their self-worth? So that's deeply important for somebody who is going to survive and move through a serious cancer diagnosis. Deepening your spiritual connections. Believing in something larger than yourself is hugely important. Additionally, slowing and stopping your mind has a major impact of its own. Research has, again, shown that meditation practices of novices, they're used a PET scan, so a functional PET scan, which what it does is it looks where the activity is in whatever body part you're scanning. So they scanned these novice practitioners before they ever started a meditation practice, they scanned their brains and they found out where the activity was. And 2 weeks later, they rescanned their brains. Now, these practitioners have only been doing meditation for 10 minutes a day. Okay, so 2 weeks later, what they found is there was a huge change in their brain activity from the amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of your primitive brain, to the prefrontal cortex, or the part of your brain that does higher reasoning. And that was even more profound after a repeat PET scan. So quieting your mind and finding something bigger than yourself.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So embracing your social support. Does anybody know anyone else who's too busy for their support to take time for family dinners, take time to play in the park with the kids, connecting with each other, doing everything else at the loss of that absolute time with others?
Yeah.
And increasing your positive emotions. There's been a big movement for gratitude sweeping the country, and with good justification. Every cell in your body talks to the others through a chemical signal, and sending the right signals is powerful. Stop for a moment, close your eyes, clench your fist, and feel what it was like when that person cut you off in traffic the other day, and it scared you. Now open your hand and just feel what happens when you release that and it goes away. Maybe even take your hand and blow and feel, how does it feel now?
And it dissipates, doesn't it?
Yeah. So releasing suppressed emotion. Everything that happens to us in our lifetime is stored in our body as a cellular memory. Releasing those toxic memories is so essential to a healthy life. We can hang on to the anger. It doesn't cost those people anything. It does cost you.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those people in the Kelly research, they used herbs and supplements, but using the appropriate herbs and supplements can complement care and can really make a difference in successful outcomes. More frequently, we're seeing naturopaths, Chinese medicine specialists, nutritionists, and others at major cancer treatment facilities to help supply as much of the expertise needed here.
And homeopathy as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am a proponent of what I term of as integrative medicine. Literally, to me, means standard conventional Western medicine married with all the other healing modalities from around the world, and that being those that are appropriate to each patient.
Mm-hmm. So everyone is spoke on the wheel, and you're at the center.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I use a fair amount of homeopathy in my practice, and I just find it super, super helpful.
Yeah.
So, and that's another subject entirely. But
Mm-hmm.
so following your intuition, and that's a big part of it too. What did their gut tell them? Because they may have gone to somebody and they said, oh, you're going to die, so go home and prepare yourself. And they're like, no, I'm not ready yet. I'm going to find somebody who will be my partner in care and follow what I know I need.
Wow.
So those patients that did well battling the cancer, listened to what was right for them. If they didn't disagree with their provider's recommendations, they found a new one they did resonate with.
I love that.
And if they found a treatment program that didn't work, they turned around and changed and found one that would. And that was the big difference. There's a lot of opinions out there. And it doesn't mean that you have to go chasing the very last rainbow, but it does mean you have to listen to yourself.
Love it.
So taking control of your health. In a simple statement, they empowered themselves. Exercise, stress management, they're powerful tools in controlling your health. Some of those practices included yoga, massage, meditation, etc. There were so many different options. But the key underlying factor was they took control. Because when you feel disempowered, out of control, you don't do well.
Mm-hmm.
And they radically changed their diet. Interesting was the fact that they chose different diets to support who they were and what would support their specific body. Some chose to go vegan, others included meat and every variation in between. The common elements included greatly reducing or eliminating sugar, meat, dairy, or refined foods. So those are big.
Mm-hmm.
Greatly increasing the fruits and vegetables, eating organic, drinking filtered water. Of interest in this is cancer cells behave differently than regular cells. And one of the characteristics is they need lots of sugar, called the Warburg effect. That's one of the reasons it's so important to decrease your refined sugar intake. And remember, they just love sugar. So when you're now and down on the sugars, or those things that are easily converted into sugar, you are just feeding them.
Oh, that was the best thing I ever did for myself, was to finally get off sugar. Just a little bit of chocolate, but it was felt very empowering, and I'm glad to hear the cancer risk is lower then too.
Yes, it is. Very definitely. So this is a really busy slide, but it encompasses many of the concepts for successfully treating cancer. It also encompasses many of the concepts for successfully living your life.
Perfect.
What if we made this a prescription for life rather than a treatment for cancer?
Yes.
Totally different world.
Yes. I agree.
So where does energy medicine come in? Because that's, like I said, that's my passion.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the pieces around breast cancer and energy medicine. So breast cancer is a disturbance in the energy flow in the fourth chakra. The fourth chakra is between your throat and your solar plexus. So that fourth chakra is, it's that physical body connection that houses the breasts, heart, and lungs. The emotional connection there is emotional perception. And that's an interesting look, that emotion is only a perception. And that's why some people can go through the same event as somebody else and have completely different response to it. And
Nice.
so it's that perception piece. And our challenge here is to release emotional pain and find inner peace. So what are breast problems in the energy medicine world? Their refusal to nourish yourself, putting others always first, over-mothering, overprotecting, overbearing. That's an interesting thing. So those people who give their all the time and don't stop and replenish are very much at risk for breast problems. So cancer, long-standing anger, resentment, and hurt. So let's flash back to Jill. So she had some of her challenges right here with her struggle to release old hurts and woundings from her entire life to find peace. Always putting others first at her cost and overprotecting her family and friends. This became a recipe to create the environment for breast cancer to get a hold in her body. And then fueled with that sedentary lifestyle, compounded by poor diet and broken sleep, kind of the perfect storm, isn't it? You notice I didn't say Jill caused her cancer. There's a big difference between contribution and factors and causality. So, wow. Here's the truly fundamental need for all of us. So the way this all came together for this talk for the nurse practitioners was kind of encapsulated in this one YouTube video that I watched the day before I gave it. Because in this video is this amazing, beautiful woman. And she is a warrior on the front lines as a COVID ICU nurse. And she spoke these words: you have to put yourself in the shoes of your patients. You have to feel what they feel. You try all your tricks and they don't work. People get sicker. You are the bridge for your patients and your heart breaks. And I'm going to repeat that. Your heart breaks for this woman and many like her, carrying the grief, the strain, the anger, the exhaustion, poor sleep or none. Food is probably not optimal. Disconnection from her family as she sent her son away to be safe. All the energetic risk factors are here and more that I haven't listed. And this warrior on the front lines has a beautiful process of release when one of her patients dies. She goes to the ocean and she releases flowers in memory of those who have passed, and she cries. The losses this year are immense. Let's do what we can do to mitigate them so that it doesn't take this next generation with them. So what about men and breast cancer? Again, a place I only have questions and not answers. So I fall back on keeping life in balance and perhaps using the radical remission guidelines. That's an idea. So what changes can you make? Get with family members, friends, talk, reach out to any of us that are in these fields and actually have conversation around this. So, oops, we forgot somebody. Oh, yep, there is Rita, mom, and my oldest daughter, Jenni. Rita managed 2 rounds of chemo, 3 weeks of radiation with minimal side effects and came out on the other side. We did consistent energy medicine sessions, acupuncture, massage, Reiki, and used integrative medicine principles of an anti-inflammatory diet, supplements to support such as astragalus for cancer fatigue, Stamets 7 mushrooms for immune support, turkey tail mushrooms specifically for colorectal cancer and others. 9 months after diagnosis, Rita's latest blood work showed a CEA, cancer marker, of 0.1 over the high normal, and a pelvic CT that showed no indications of disease process.
Wow.
Is now 87 years old and living by herself. I hope I tell you this story to let you know there is hope with cancer. My experience with this was so profoundly exciting with the outcome and disappointing with the providers that they never asked what we did. They gave us permission to do whatever we chose, but they never ask.
Oh my gosh.
So there's more information out there. These are classes that are available through University of Arizona online education. They're certainly thought-provoking and maybe life-saving. For those people who don't have a medical background, there's some intense stuff in it. Those people who are willing to look past the intense stuff to see what their findings were, very big deal. And there lots of continuing education for those people who could use it. So I strongly encourage you to reach out, and maybe even encourage your medical providers to reach out and read these. They're certainly thought-provoking and maybe life-saving.
Yeah.
Questions?
I think this is extraordinary, Leanne. It's so much of what I've looked at as well. Your research is more in depth into cancer. The fasting, that the research of
13 hours, the intermittent
well,
fasting.
that, but also Dr. Longo's research at USC started with mice, of course, but just fasting for longer periods of time, how cancer cells couldn't survive fasting. And that comes from all the Russian and German data, historically. Exercise and weight have always been issues, but I've luckily always enjoyed exercise.
Yeah.
And yet had an English-Danish heritage. So that sugar was there from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it may as well have been heroin for me, because it was so addictive, and I'm proud of myself to have gotten off it. I'm hugely big into releasing our emotions responsibly. I use tapping and Qigong. This audience has heard this before. And I'm just thrilled to have you here. And I guess what I've thought was important was to bring up these topics and then let everybody decide for themselves and do further research. So I think what I'll do is ask for the links, and I'll put them into the comments and make them available to people.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And anybody that wants to reach out for other questions, I gladly spend time with you. If we need further conversation, we'll have an appointment, but the majority of the time I'll answer your questions and as straightforward as I can.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
It's been very eye-opening. And what you also said about the research turning over so quickly, I find that hopeful myself, that there are answers coming more quickly than we might have thought. And having come from a background in research, often it was a lot of the egos. I've discovered this, and if the research was changing that frequently, but the people,
mindset couldn't.
The mindset couldn't change because I did it and I was right, and I've got the funding behind it. All of that just is, I think, shifting. So.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing that I've found really helpful for me, because of the Integrative Medicine Fellowship, we have students in that program from all over the world. So we have gotten lots of good information from many, many, many resources. Israel, India, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. So yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, it's very global. Very global.
And I think, the summary of the, not just diet and exercise, but the overgiving, I found the same thing to happen for a lot of the patients that went through our department with reproductive endocrinology and ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
It was giving too much of it ourselves, our essence away.
Absolutely.
So it's gratifying in a way to hear you come to the same conclusion, and it's time to change those old programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank you for having me in today.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, very educational. Appreciate you very much.